Me now are two people in a uniquely good position to know. Stacey Young spent 18 years at the Justice Department and is the founder and executive director of the organization Justice Connection, which earlier this month organized a letter for more than 1,200 former Justice Department employees explaining all of the reasons why they opposed Todd Blanche's nomination. And back with us is Norm Eisen, the co-founder of Democracy Defenders Fund, which organized the amicus brief from a group of 35 former judges that got Trump's IRS settlement thrown in the trash by a federal judge to begin with. Norm, I've been saying this for a while now. From Trump's perspective, this is a win-win, because if Blanche is not formally approved by the Senate, he's still acting. And he's still in the job, in the role, through the election, which right now is the most important thing for Trump. Or the Senate buckles, as been the deal, and give Trump his permanent attorney general, who, again, will be in position going into the election. So does it really matter if you know, this approval of Blanche goes through by the committee?
I think it does matter. There is a big difference in the legitimacy of an attorney general if they have the blessing of the Senate or not. You and I were talking on the break. All of these legal fights that we've had over the past 18 months are going to come to fruition around this election. The Democracy Defenders Fund and Action, we're ready to litigate across the country. Up to twice as many cases, Michael. We had 63 in 2020. We'll do 126.
You're going to be busy.
But whether Todd Blanche has the imprimatur of the Senate or not matters to his ability to enter into that fray. Number two, it matters because what are we talking about? The slush fund,
right?
The settlement, the Trump corruption. That is why Trump has sunk to Nixonian lows. So these fights are important for our democracy. Finally, maybe Donald Trump should not have opposed John Cornyn and Tom Tillis in their Senate races, and he would not be having this problem. Now, they have nothing to lose because they are lame ducks,
right,
and they seem to be willing to fight to get a written agreement erasing this odious slush fund and settlement.
Well, you know, Stacey, it's interesting, you know, what our friend here says about, you know, maybe they shouldn't have, you know, Trump shouldn't have gotten into this fight with these guys. Todd Blanche seems to think that your letter with the 1,200 former DOJ officials opposing his nomination was, how did he put it? Wasn't a high percentage compared to the entirety of the Justice Department's workforce. In other words, 1,200 people. I know if I got a letter from 1,200 people telling me not to do something, I don't think I would do it. So what do you make of that response, and really just how tone deaf the acting attorney general is to the reality around him?
I mean, I'll tell you, if 1,200 of my former colleagues opposed my promotion, I'd probably withdraw my name from consideration. But what is really telling about that response is after Todd Blanche said 1,200 isn't that many, 77 DOJ alumni sent the Senate Judiciary Committee a letter supporting the nomination. So, you know, Todd Blanche said after our letter was sent, I'm not a numbers guy, but 1,200 doesn't seem like that many.
Right.
I'm not a numbers guy either, but 1,200 seems like a much bigger number than 77.
Yes.
So it's resounding that 1,200 DOJ alumni who don't generally speak out against an attorney general nominee were willing to do so in this case. That speaks volumes, and every senator on the Judiciary Committee and every senator in the Senate should pay close attention to that.
What specifically, and maybe you can touch on it a little bit with regards to the letter, but what was animating those 1,200? What was it about Todd Blanche's nomination, credibility to serve in the role as Attorney General that really triggered a lot of the signatories?
I think almost all DOJ alumni are appalled at what they've seen over the last year and a half. The assault on the rule of law, the assault on the institution itself, and the assault on the institution's workforce. So far, almost 20,000 DOJ employees have been pushed out. Hundreds have been fired illegally, some by Todd Blanche himself. What that purge of talent is doing is making our country less safe. It is having a negative effect on our economy. It means that our rights are less protected. It means that our elections may be less secure in the fall. The attacks on the department are unprecedented, and the institutional norms that had helped maintain the department as a solid institution that upheld the rule of law have been almost destroyed.
Norm, it's because that is the leading concern going into the nomination. On the other side of that, if the Senate approves it, or if it doesn't, he stays in an acting role, you then have the concern about what he does going forward in the job. And what do you think the Congress, groups like the both of yours and others out there can do to safeguard against arguably a rogue attorney general who's acting as he said, his words, I am the president's lawyer? What do we do? How do you contain that? How do you control for that?
Perhaps the most important thing to do is to push back on the illegitimate criminal prosecutions. Todd Blanche and Donald Trump's Department of Justice are prosecuting innocent people. And we have been very active as a coalition, Justice Connection, Democracy Defenders, and everybody else in our coalition. At Democracy Defenders, we were part of the team that helped get the case against David Huerta, the union leader in California, was being wrongly prosecuted. That case went away this week. We've supported those pushing against the Tish James bogus prosecution, Jim Comey bogus prosecution. We've represented Dr. Lisa Cook. There were false charges made. We took that case with our wonderful partners all the way to the Supreme Court. And dozens more cases where, as a coalition, that is the single worst thing that Todd Blanche has overseen, these baseless criminal prosecutions. And the next worst thing is the election intrusion. We just won a landmark case there. They tried to use criminal power in Fulton County, Georgia, a criminal subpoena. We got the courts, a Trump judge, again, wonderful team, quash that subpoena. And we need to get ready to continue to fight. Above all, the abuses that Todd Blanche is overseeing in the courts, whether civil or criminal, must continue to be resisted. And I think that's part of those terrible Trump numbers. Michael, the American people don't want that from their Justice Department or president.
Can you just lower the gas prices? It's not complicated, right? I appreciate that. Stacey Young, thank you for the work you're doing out there and being with us tonight. Norm, as always, thank you, my friend, for being at the table. Coming up,